Let's hear from the opponents. Mr. Fox, did you intend to? Very good.
Good morning, legislators. My name is Sandra Steingraber. I am a PhD biologist and distinguished scholar in residence at Ithaca College. I am a founder of Concerned Health Professionals of New York. I have provided invited testimony about fracking and my research on fracking on many occasions in the New York State House as well as in Washington, D.C. and before the European Parliament. And although I come to you today from New York, I spent the first half of my life in downstate Illinois. I was born in Champaign, raised in Pekin, graduated from Illinois Wesleyan, and pursued a master's degree at Illinois State. This is my message to you. Yes, this bill before you is a model for the nation, but it is a model for unethical behavior. It is a model for anti-scientific decision-making, and it is a model for how to completely disrespect democracy. I ask you to follow our example in New York and declare a moratorium on fracking until you have thoroughly studied the long-term costs to human health and the environment. You have not done that yet. Shale gas extraction via fracking is an accident-prone, carcinogen-dependent enterprise. It turns communities into industrial zones, and until and unless you understand and quantify those costs, you cannot claim that fracking Illinois will provide net economic benefits. You cannot claim that the current set of proposed regulations, which were promulgated behind closed doors, without the involvement of Illinois' public health community or any doctors or any scientists, are sufficiently protective to protect the public health of people in this state. And indeed, with this same argument, we in New York chose to reject our proposed draft regulations, which were far stricter than yours. And I would like to ask now, you notice that the people are filling the halls of the assembly here, and I would like all those behind me who feel that they have not had a voice in this decision and who would like a moratorium on fracking in Illinois to please stand up. So with these people behind me, let me say this again, and I'm going to direct my remarks not only to you, respected legislators, but also to the Attorney General, Lisa Madigan, who brokered a deal to bring complicit environmental organizations into a closed room with industry and hammer out a set of rules and let there be no mistake about it, serves as a starting gun and a green light for fracking. The idea that somehow invisible fracking is going on in Illinois, like the new Red Scare, there's a fracking drill rig under our bed somewhere and we don't know it, it's invisible, but it's already happening and we need these rules to somehow prevent it. That is nonsense. If there is fracking going on in the state, then let there be evidence brought forward to say where and when it's going on and what the problems are, and then we will try to stop it. Because of our own democratic process, New Yorkers now know a lot about fracking, and the more we find out, the deeper our objections. And that's because when you look under fracking's hood, you find terrifying problems. Because behind the hard sell and the soothing promises that you've heard here this morning, this contraption is unsafe at any speed. Here's what we scientists and doctors have learned already in New York. First, regulations cannot prevent well casings from leaking as they age and fail. They cannot prevent methane from migrating through underground faults or eliminate 24/7 noise pollution from drilling. Regulations cannot keep benzene from rising out of boreholes. There is no good storage solution for radioactive wastewater. And the jobs that fracking provides are temporary. They only last until the gas runs out. That will be before my children are old enough to have jobs in the industry. They are toxic. They expose workers to silica dust, which is a known cause of lung cancer and silicosis. They expose workers to hazardous air pollutants, and they are lethal. These jobs have on-the-job fatality rates 7 times that of other industries, according to our Centers for Disease Control. More fundamentally, scientists have not yet identified all the chemicals released from drilling and fracking operations. Thus, clearly, if you don't know what impacts need mitigating, there is no way to know whether your so-called model set of regulations sufficiently mitigates anything. It took us New Yorkers several years to sift through the science and industry claims, and we're not done yet. And meanwhile, the land of Lincoln was afforded no chance for democratic participation. And that is what makes this an undemocratic bill. The idea that environmental groups cooperated with industry would be one word for it. I would call it appeasement and capitulation. A state suffering from economic desperation, as Illinois is. My mother lives here in Pekin. Her own pension is under jeopardy. I understand the situation here. But that means you are also a state unable to fully fund the regulatory agencies needed to monitor the thousands of well pads and all the attendant infrastructure and enforce those regulations. No matter how good or bad those regulations might be, in the absence of funding and personnel for enforcement, the result will be unacceptably low levels of environmental and public health protection. Finally, it is wrong to draft and endorse unenforceable regulations in the absence of any comprehensive environmental impact study or any health impact assessment of any kind. The ongoing disaster in Pennsylvania, and I live only 45 minutes from that border, and I can see it by taking a short drive from my home. It shows us that it's impossible to enact protections and better regulations once fracking has started, and the world's largest industry wields its influence in state and local governments. Indeed, in Pennsylvania, the staple law passed after drilling started was a gag order on doctors treating victims of fracking who were not allowed to even talk to the medical community about what they were seeing in their patients. Indeed, EPA Inspector General, in conceding that the EPA now has limited data on the health risks of fracking, has warned that states may, in the face of so many unknowns, design incorrect or ineffective regulations. And that's a direct quote from the EPA Inspector General, and that is exactly what this bill is doing. And it is doing so under the guidance of some of our premier environmental organizations, and shame on them for that. In the context of a moratorium, a thorough investigation of fracking's impact on human health could be conducted. Such an investigation could help answer three fundamental questions about hydraulic fracturing in Illinois. First, will fracking sicken and kill more people than it employs? Second, will the sick and dying have any recourse other than fleeing their homes and jobs to protect themselves? Third, what is the economic cost of all that morbidity and mortality? Case studies and individual reports from other states provide credible evidence of public health risks in communities located near drilling and fracking operations. That's what I have spent the last 2 years studying. This is what I can tell you about those data. Small increases in mortality and disease rates that we see in some of our less densely populated states in Wyoming and Texas, in a state as densely populated as Illinois, would have much bigger consequences and carry much bigger medical costs than equivalent effects in, for example, eastern Utah. Those consequences must be studied before any regulations are promulgated. Regulated fracking in the absence of environmental or human health assessments is unethical because it compels the citizens of Illinois, including members of my own family, to serve as unconsenting subjects in a vast human experiment. It is unscientific because it is illogical to claim that any set of regulations can sufficiently protect public health when you haven't identified what the health threats are yet, what the routes of exposure are, and what the medical costs of all those exposures will be. It is undemocratic because the very people who are being asked to assume the unknown risks to their health have had no seat at this table and no voice in crafting the rules that they will be forced to live under. I am convinced that a thorough, well-designed health study conducted in good faith and inclusive of long-term cumulative impacts will reveal many problems. They will be expensive problems, and not all of them will be capable of mitigation through technological fixes. This is an easy prediction for me to make. We know that shale gas extraction is an inherently dangerous operation. It turns solid bedrock into broken shards, whose cracks becomes potential pathways for contamination of water and air, and some of that radioactive. Risks to public health from fracking arise at every stage of the gas extraction process, from the clearing of land from well pads to the disposal of toxic wastewater to the radon that accompanies the gas that travels through the pipelines into people's homes. We know that traffic-related noise pollution alone demonstrably raises the risk for heart attack, high blood pressure, and cognitive deficits in children. We know that increasing fracking operations, along with increasing truck traffic, noise pollution, light at night, and crime, also decrease availability of local food supply.
We have other witnesses, Dr.
I will close with a line of poetry from Illinois' Nobel laureate poet John Knopfel. The poem is titled Confluence, and it is set on the banks of the Sangamon River, and it goes like this. This world in peace, this lace temple of darkening colors, it could not have been made for shambles. With fracking, shambles is what you get. Illinois, you are worth so much more than the wisps and puddles of gas and oil inside your bedrock. Thank you. Thank you.